Football is different, and some say it's gotten worse, and there's one man to blame for that. Apparently, Pep Guardiola. But in this video, we're going to take a look at, has Pep actually ruined football? Well, what's the crime that he's accused of? Too much tactics? A lack of individuality? Players can't express themselves anymore, they're just robots, and football is just less fun. For me,
a little from column A, a little from column B.
I think when we say this, it's just said in a general way where it should be just put at individual players. I mean, we all know the one in question is Jack Grealish, isn't it? All of us English fans were all annoyed that Jack Grealish was brilliant at Aston Villa, and now he's essentially just a cog in the machine at Man City. People say Pep has ruined him. I just don't agree. I don't agree Pep's ruined him. I'm not trying to say he hasn't changed, because he has. At Aston Villa, he was given free roam, wasn't he? He was given the ability to just wander around the pitch. I've heard Dean Smith just say he just wanted to give the ball to Jack Grealish. And at Man City, he's just been relegated to playing on the left wing. He'll get it, he'll dribble, and then he'll just pass it back to the left back. Well, one, he was never going to be a free roam player at Man City. Unless you are literally prime Kevin De Bruyne, you are not given that responsibility, because even someone like a Phil Foden, who's probably a better player than Jack Grealish, he still has to be in a role. And two, in terms of individual talent, Jeremy Doku not exist, Savinho, did Riyad Mahrez not play for Man City? All of these players were brilliant before they joined, and if anything, they showed more at Man City. And then you go back even further, Bayern Munich, Ribery and Robben. Ribery probably had his best season of his career under Pep. So out of all those players I mentioned, which one had their personality coached out by Pep? And like I say, when you get bought by a bigger club, unless you're brilliant, you have less freedom. Vinicius Jr. probably had so much more freedom playing for Flamengo than he did at Real Madrid. That's not because he's a terrible player and Ancelotti's coached it all out of him. It's also because he's surrounded by as good, if not better, players than him, and he has to play within the system. It's been like that since the dawn of time, since football started. When a player moves to a good club, they have to change the game a bit. Yeah, do I miss seeing Grealish cut in like he did against Man United for Villa? Of course I do, he's brilliant and I enjoy seeing him play for England. But it doesn't look like Pep's told him not to do any of that. It looks like he's got a bit scared. Jeremy Doku has no fear when he's playing. He just goes at the fullbacks constantly. Grealish does seem a bit confused, worried, and people say, well, that's Pep confusing him. In my opinion, if you can't understand what he's doing, then that's not necessarily the manager's fault, because a lot of other players have. But let's move on from Grealish and carry this Guardiola apology tour. One of the biggest points is Guardiola's effect has caused teams like Dagenham and Redbridge, Oldham, York City to all play out from the back. Everyone needs to play out from the back now because it's the way Guardiola has, and in that sense, he has ruined football. Yes, I do despise worse teams playing out from the back, because when you can't, I mean, there's nothing more frustrating than watching a goalkeeper give away a ball and the striker just taps it into an open net. It's ridiculous, because you get taught that at primary school. Southampton this season, they might be the worst team ever in the Premier League. And it's partially because they've been playing out from the back under Russell Martin at the start of the year. I remember watching Alex McCarthy playing out from the back for Southampton, and God, just bless him, because he is a half-decent keeper. He's not a good keeper with his feet. Kyle Walker-Peters, great right back, one of the most underrated in the league. But he's not Kyle Walker, is he? He can't play out from the back the way Kyle Walker can. You don't need to create in every game the Carlos Alberto goal in 1970 for Brazil. But this is my controversial opinion, right? It's not Guardiola's fault. It's ours. It's our fault, and it's the media's fault. But Alex, why? Why is it our fault? Sean Dyche is why it's our fault. And I'll explain this because Sean Dyche is one of the most underrated managers we've seen of the last decade, maybe even the Premier League history. Because Sean Dyche got Burnley to 7th. He got Burnley to Europe. I mean, I do honestly believe that's like getting this Southampton team to 7th in the league. And if you look at that season, only the teams above him were the quote-unquote Big Six. How did Sean Dyche get that Burnley team to 7? Got them there by playing 2 banks of 4 and then Ashley Barnes and Chris Wood up front. His best players were Nick Pope, James Tarkowski, maybe Dwight McNeil. Let's just remember, this isn't Chris Wood, who scored 18 goals in the Premier League for Nottingham Forest. He was very good at Leeds and he was a consistent performer at Burnley, but again, he was just a mid-table and lower Premier League striker. Do you remember that season if Chelsea, Man United, Man City, Bayern Munich, do you think any of them offered him a job? Because maybe I just had my head in the sand, but I do not remember. The only thing, I think I might have seen a gossip column saying Arsenal? I don't think that was ever going to happen. Last season, Vincent Kompany came dead last in the Premier League. Burnley were terrible at the end of the season. Where is he now? He's at Bayern Munich. As recorded, he's just drawn with Inter Milan and just lost out on going to the Champions League semi-final. Burnley were hopeless last season. They were hopeless because they were playing his style of play, playing out from the back. I made a video on this, it's called it like the biggest conspiracy of Premier League managers or whatever, but I do believe this is true. I do believe if company played like Sean Dyche did last season, and he might have got them 17th, 16th in the league, kept them up, Bayern Munich wouldn't have offered him a job. It's my tinfoil hat conspiracy theory, but I do believe these managers at the lower end of the table in the Premier League, maybe high in the Championship, they will sacrifice the results of the team to build their CV up. And like I say, I don't blame them, because you'll get sacked on a minute's notice in a football club. I think unless you're at the very top, or you have an emotional connection with a club like a David Moyes, I don't believe they're really that interested in progressing the football club and winning. There are anomalies, don't get me wrong, but I think for the most part, they're just trying to progress their career. So now this isn't Pep's fault, is it? It's not his fault that he's been so successful that a lot of the neutrals, a lot of the coaches, the sporting directors, everyone, they want their teams to play the style Pep does, because that apparently wins trophies. It has to be on us, because we are the people, essentially, who create the opinion of these managers. The media does. Everton fans, yes, Sean Dyche could not score a goal this season, but I think he kept like 5-6 clean sheets in a row. And I understand that he's not progressing the football club in a certain way. However, he kept them up last season, which, if they went down, it would have been financial chaos with the new stadium. Diego Simeone, for example, probably for pound, other than Guardiola, the most consistent manager in the top leagues in the world. But because he plays such a sturdy way of football, I mean, it's got a bit better, but especially in the mid-2010s, good lord, they just used to play a low block against the big teams in the Champions League. He doesn't get put in the same tactical hierarchy as Guardiola and Ancelotti, Jurgen Klopp, because he's so defensive and structured. If he had the same results for Atletico, but played a really free-flowing type of football, then he'd be seen maybe as a god amongst men. As always, a podcast that I really enjoy and for some reason I love to argue against. Stick to football. I watched the one last week, Gary Neville, Jill Scott, Ian Wright, Roy Keane. They were all going on about how football just isn't as fun, as entertaining anymore. I made some good points. Gary Neville was going on about how defenders having the most touches on the ball at the moment. Completely, brilliant points. But these are the same people, and they're not alone, because everyone did it, who constantly criticise Man United for not having a style of play. They have a style of play now, in Ruben Amorim. Even though the players can't play it, they have a style of play, we can see what he's trying to do, and they're classed as robots. So unless we're going to get this utopian middle ground where people have a style of play, they have a system, but all the players in that system can freely run around and express themselves, then to me, like, what are we talking about here? Because again, self-reflective, we as fans, the media, before it was robotic football, it was defensive football. In the 2010s, Mourinho was seen as a villain. Him going to Chelsea and then him going to Spurs. I remember him at Spurs, it was anti-football every week. Antonio Conte, he had anti-football written all over him. Thomas Tuchel at Chelsea, I mean, maybe they're all Chelsea managers here, but all of these managers got slated massively. Despite they won loads, they didn't do it in the right way. When Leeds got promoted in 2020, people loved them under Bielsa because they played this full throttle football. Fans hated teams like a Burnley, like a West Brom, like a Stoke, who would come up and they just play a low block all season to try and hope to stay up. So I suppose, is it just recency bias and we always will criticise the most recent thing that we don't like? Or is it just delusion because football, in my opinion, it hasn't got worse. There are elements that have got worse, but there are elements that have got better. Do we want these promoted teams just to play so defensive all season? Every game is 0-0, 1-0. Or do we want them to play, free-flowing attacking football? I think, there is a grey area where Russell Martin can't be making Jan Bednarak and Taylor Harwood-Bellis play out from the back. That's completely fair enough. But there definitely is this fickleness about how a lot of us want teams to play football. Just to do a bit of a detour, let's go back to Pep, because I suppose this is what the video is about. He has raised the bar, hasn't he? Especially in English football. He's changed English football. When a dominant manager comes in, throughout just football, we've seen it in my lifetime. Jose Mourinho came in and did a 4-3-3, and they had Thiago, Lampard and Makelele. A lot of teams started to try and implement that. Why do you think it's called the Makelele position, and why do you think so many teams tried to imitate it? Because he was the first, people saw it was working and they wanted to do it for their squad. Conte, again, I'm not trying to harper on these Chelsea managers, I don't know why, but Conte brought in the 3-4-3. I'm not saying no team ever played it. Teams started using wing-backs more. Teams started using 3 at the back, 2 wing-backs on the side and 3 up top. And because Pep has been dominating the English league pretty much since he came in, maybe it's after his 2nd season, people are trying to copy what he does. I think we're just at the point now where people are trying to copy his style of play where literally they do not have the ability at all to play it. But to go on the side of teams defending Man City, because Man City have been so brilliant over the last nearly decade now, teams have to be robotic against them, because if they're not in a system, if they're not in a structured defensive system, then Man City are just going to pick them apart. Look what Barcelona did. So teams unfortunately had to set up in a certain way against. But he hasn't ruined football. I mean, Arsenal, their first title charge a few years back when Saliba got injured, they nearly won that if he didn't get injured. They were playing really exciting full throttle football. Look at Liverpool this season. I don't see that as a robotic squad. They've won the league. Newcastle, if Newcastle had squad depth, they could easily put a title charge together. It's just because eventually, if they get back into the Champions League, they don't have enough players to compete. But they're probably like the most nostalgic team in the league, because they just go for it every single game. I do believe there's a cut-off from the teams that actually are trying to win stuff, get into Europe, and the teams that just have a manager who is trying to showcase himself to a better club. I don't blame managers, because the life cycle is just so short nowadays that, yeah, do what Company did, because he could have got sacked from Burnley in a couple of years and ended up in League One. But again, it's just lazy to say Pep has ruined football because he's the best. Man City have won everything. I mean, one, they haven't, because they've won one Champions League since he's been there. If they were that dominant, then they would have won every single season and would have won the quadruple every year. And two, please, I mean, like I say, do whatever you want. Stop being so negative about football. I've just watched this week brilliant Champions League football, attacking Champions League football. Yeah, there are some teams like a Man United who have somewhat robotic players that they can't seem to go in and out of the positions and they have to stay within the system. But on the flip side, like I say, if pundits have been saying for 2 or 3 years Ten Hag had no style of play, no system, is it a bit hypocritical to then criticise Amorim for having a system? Just the players don't seem to be good enough. But let me know what you think. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe Pep has ruined football and he's the Antichrist. But leave a comment below. If you could leave a like on the video, that'd be fantastic. And subscribe to the channel, that'd be great. Thanks for watching.